was one Christmas, cut a long story short, I got on a coach to go to Birmingham to where my boyfriend was for Christmas to join his family. And I ended up speaking to someone that worked for a brand called Kukai, a French brand. And we talked, and she said, it really doesn't sound like you want to go to law school. Really doesn't sound like this is the career for you. When I'm speaking to you, you seem like a really good communicator. You seem like you should be in marketing or PR. And I was like, never really thought about those professions at all. And I don't think I knew what PR was, to be honest.
Hello, welcome to the One Precious Life podcast, which explores how individuals discover and pursue their calling, both within their careers and beyond. Through insightful conversations with extraordinary people, we delve into the challenges and joys of following one's passion and making the most of our one precious lives. Today, we are meeting Michelle Agyeman-Coley, who is a fashion PR guru, founder of communications agency Future Brand Thinking. But beyond her stellar fashion career, Michelle has carved out a fascinating and multifaceted work life, which we're going to hear all about today. Hello, Michelle. So let's start with a big question. What does it mean to you to live a one precious life?
Well, I think that's a great opening question. To live one precious life is, for me, exactly what it says on the tin. You only have one precious life. It's important to live that life to the fullest. Every day is a new day. And where possible, I try and make sure that I do the things that I want to do. I see the people that I want to see. I love the people and keep them close that I want to be around me. And you enjoy it, really.
Absolutely, it's so true. You set up a PR and communications agency working in some really interesting areas. Tell us about that.
So 4 years ago, we turned 4 in January 2025, drawing to the close of the pandemic in a sense. And Black Lives Matter was still a thing. It wasn't a trend then. And I just had a little bit of a difficult time during the pandemic. All of a sudden, I've never wanted to be a teacher and I've never wanted to be a full-time mum. I love my children. They are the reason why I exist. However, we were thrown into this moment of becoming teachers, parents, everything rolled into one. And my current role as associate director of a medium-sized agency didn't quite fit with that. So it was very difficult homeschooling and then finishing homeschooling. Our school was brilliant. It was pretty much like a normal school day. So I was pretty much a teacher to both my children at the time, who were 3 years apart. So, you know, learning in a completely different way.
Yeah, I mean, I went through that as well. It was horrendous. It was horrendous.
Best time. You know, the time that we spent together as a family, brilliant, but that time wasn't. It just so happened that my working culture environment wasn't suited to me being almost like a stay-at-home mom and then working in between where I could. I got the job done. I didn't kind of miss any deadlines or anything like that. But our normal way of working, I was the only one in the entire agency that had children. So I really felt that.
And when you say the agency, what's the agency? What does that mean?
It was another communications agency. So I've been in PR for 24 years. I've always worked in PR in my adult life. And it was another communications agency that I worked for at the time. I was in my, I think, 5th year of working with them when the pandemic hit. And, you know, it just wasn't pleasant. I didn't feel, not that I didn't feel completely supported, but it was a little bit difficult for anyone in the business to understand because no one else was a parent. So I made the decision to resign from that role. And I made that decision on the back of the fact that I knew that I could start a new agency. So I would be starting another agency and starting a new role in the experience that I've had for the last 20 years, right? So it wasn't like I was going into business and starting a whole new different career. I was just taking all of my experience, knowledge, and I learned a lot at this agency. I learned how to run a small business. So I was taking that and starting on my own, and that way I could be more present for the children, and I could, have some autonomy in the way I worked. So that was how Future Brand Thinking, which is my agency that I still run now, was born. And we were really lucky. We hit the ground running 2 months in with a huge streetwear brand that's based in Amsterdam. So it was a Dutch streetwear brand called Daily Paper. And we started working with them, and then it just went from strength to strength from there.
So for now, if your life were a book, what would the title of this current chapter be?
This question was, again, a lovely question, because I have a title of a book that I hope one day to write. So
Yeah.
the name of that book and the answer to this question would be The Queen's English.
And why? Why is that?
Very interesting answer if you don't, or confusing answer if you don't understand the background.
Yeah.
So the Queen's English is a phrase that's often used by Ghanaian parents, especially kind of well-educated Ghanaian parents. When I was growing up in East London, obviously my parents wanted me to speak a certain way. They wanted me to speak very eloquently. They came from boarding schools back in Ghana. They had a very good education, and my dad had a university degree and a master's. So they were really educated people, and they didn't want me to use slang. They didn't want me to, abbreviate and all of that jazz that is now in 2025 the norm for young people. And so my mum would always say, we speak the Queen's English in this house, Michelle. And then as I grew up, I started speaking to other Ghanaian diasporian children, and they said, oh God, my mum used to say that to me. My dad used to say that to me. And I never really kind of got it. But what they meant was, in Ghana, the first language that you learn at school, if you're educated, the first language you learn is English. So I think Ghanaians pride themselves on speaking the Queen's English. So having great pronunciation, very eloquent. And that's how my parents wanted me to speak. So my whole life story is based around my parents being first generation Ghanaians to come here to study. And then they settled here and they worked, and they've worked up until retirement. And they still say to this day, even with my 8-year-old and my 11-year-old, Jackson, Dexter. Sadly, my dad passed away. But my mum will always say, yeah, you must speak the Queen's English. And she always, even to this day, as a 48-year-old, will pull me up if I kind of, use a little bit of slang or, So that would be the title of my book that I hope one day to write. And it will tell all of those stories of growing up, especially coming into a career where I didn't see anyone that looked like me when I first came into PR.
Was there something that you wanted to do as a child that still resonates with you today?
I think even as a child, I was very entrepreneurial. My parents, were very strict on education. So it was only the weekends that I could, make pocket money or make any money. And at a very young age, I think I must have been about 10, I asked my mum and dad if I could wash cars in the area, just locally, and ask if I could wash cars. And I thought, my brother was 5 years younger than me, so he was only 5. And because we were just in our local area, I said, Mum, can I take my brother? And because he was really cute and only 5, I took him along for the cute factor. So people
well done.
knock on the door and they'd see this cute little boy, and they'd see me saying, I'd love to wash your car. Kind of very bolshy and very confident. I can wash your car really well. And I can't remember how much I charged, but it was something like £3 or £5. So back then, I'm 48 now, that was a lot of money. And we were getting paid. We did about 3 or 4 cars. I think I've always been entrepreneurial. So I think that streak in me has stayed. And the way I address my business, yes, it is an agency. It's a communications agency, but I look at it very much like a business that can pivot and have add-ons and ways in which we can drive revenue through other things other than PR and communications. I would say the other career path I would have liked to have explored would have been something a little bit more creative. I always loved fashion, even though I didn't study fashion. From a very young age, I would sketch a model-like person in a beautiful, puffball skirt and that kind of thing. And I also loved hair and makeup. So a part of me wishes that I had gone down that road, as well as doing what I'm doing now.
What did you study?
So I studied law and business.
Right, interesting.
So my path was almost mapped out for me. A lot of my family are lawyers and barristers, really successful lawyers and barristers. So when my friends were doing work experience in a shop or somewhere else, this was a long time ago, and work experience was just work experience. It didn't have to be in a career path that you were going to take. I went along to Chancery Lane and I worked in Lincoln's Inn at my auntie's chambers. So every work experience moment I spent in court or in chambers. She took me to court on trials. It was brilliant. So I was like, absolutely, I'm going to follow in my auntie's footsteps. I'm going to be a lawyer. As I got older, I was told that I was very argumentative and I could really hold myself in an argument, and I always wanted to win. So I think it was just that natural thing, especially for Ghanaian parents. My parents weren't really kind of saying, oh, you're really creative, you should become a fashion designer or a makeup artist or a stylist. They were, you're very argumentative, you like to win arguments, you've got family in this area of a potential career path. So, it makes sense that you go and do that. So I got into Middlesex University and I started a law and business degree. I soon kind of realised that wasn't the path for me, but that's what I studied.
And so how did you end up going from law into fashion and PR?
Well, that's quite a long story, but I'll try and keep it short. After you finish your law degree, you then do a year studying pure law. So it's a year, and then after that you do a training contract. So you go to law school for a year, and back then it was going to cost my parents about £10,000 or £15,000. It was a lot of money, whichever it was, but it was just for a year. And I started speaking to a few people. My boyfriend at the time was in his training contract, and he kind of gave me a few home truths. He was like, I can't see you in practicing, I don't know, on a high street firm, Agyeman-Coley, doing kind of legal aid. Not that there was any issue with that. He just knew where I wanted to be. I already was talking about maybe hopefully getting a training contract at Linklaters and places like that. And he said, it is so snobby in this area. And it was something that my aunties hadn't really mentioned to me, and maybe didn't want to put me off, I don't know. But he just said to me, I just about got in, coming from a working class background. He was from a not the best place in Birmingham, but he went to SOAS. He went to University of London. He went to a university that was seen as kind of a top tier university, whereas I went to Middlesex, that was once a polytechnic. Right. So he just said, the kind of lawyer you want to be, that you've got your sights set on, you're going to struggle to get into those firms, and you're going to really struggle to get a training contract. He was given.
So you weren't seen as coming from the right university.
Yeah. So he kind of gave it to me really, really bluntly, which no one had given me that information. And I kind of thought about it, and I was not really enjoying it. It was my final year at uni. I wasn't particularly enjoying it. I wasn't acing it at all. I already knew that I'd have to do a summer school extension to graduate. So I was a bit like, oh, do you know what? Maybe it's just not going to work for me. So I went away, I did the summer school, I graduated. I managed to land like an office manager job after graduation, and I was doing that. It was one Christmas. Cut a long story short, I got on a coach to go to Birmingham to where my boyfriend was for Christmas to join his family. And I ended up speaking to someone that worked for a brand called Kukai, a French brand. And we talked, and she said, it really doesn't sound like you want to go to law school. Really doesn't sound like this is the career for you. When I'm speaking to you, you seem like a really good communicator. You seem like you should be in marketing or PR. And I was like, never really thought about those professions at all. And I don't think I knew what PR was, to be honest.
Yeah.
And she said, look, I work at Kukai. I'm head of visual merchandise. We've got a girl starting who's going to be heading up the PR side. She hasn't got an assistant. She needs one. She's looking for one. I'm going to put you in touch on Monday, or as soon as the Christmas break is over. I'm going to put you in touch. I'm going to get you an interview, and the rest is history. I went for an interview. They offered me the job on the spot, offered me £2,000 less a year than I wanted. I managed in that interview to negotiate a higher pay with no experience whatsoever, and that is how my career in PR started.
Wow. How did you negotiate the pay? Did you just
I kind of just said, look, I'd love to accept this job, but I'd like you to go back to the owners and say that I was about to start a law degree and I come to the table with a bit of a legal head, so I'm going to have a different approach. I don't know how I thought of this at the time.
Yeah.
I was 21, 22. I'm going to have a different approach. I think I'm worth more than this amount. I'd like you to reconsider and take it. And she was like, I don't think this is going to really, no, this is what the pay for a completely, starting point job, entry level job. I don't think they're going to go with it. She phoned me up the next day and said they've agreed. So that was it.
And you said that there weren't people that looked like you in your career. Did you have any people that helped mentor you or help you on that path?
Not really in the beginning. So my first year was spent at Kukai, where there just wasn't anyone that looked like me. But that would have been the case in the legal profession as well, especially if I got into a big law firm. So no, not for my first year. In my second year, I went to a kind of a more diverse and a massive, at the time, PR agency. So I did see a few people, but only two that looked like me. In the whole 6 years that I was there were only 3 black girls or mixed race girls in the business.
And how does that impact your work environment? Did you feel like you had to create a network of some sort that you could support each other? Was that, I mean, you don't necessarily think of those things at the time, do you? Not when you're young.
I didn't even think it was this until recently. I've been asked about code switching a lot. I didn't know that I was doing that way back when, in 2001, 2002. I was code switching the whole time. So I would code switch to fit in at work, and then code switch to be kind of my true authentic self with my friends outside work that weren't in my work environment. I would code switch to hang out with my friends that I worked with, all because I just wasn't the same as them. My upbringing wasn't the same. It became very, very prevalent when, it came to the weekend and I was doing stuff. I lived at home when I first started working at this agency and in PR. I would be going home to do stuff with my family and relatives. They would be going to their country home or going to their actual home, because most of them weren't from London and they had very grand upbringings and homes outside London. So I was doing a very inner city London, going to see my relatives in East London, South London, but in the inner city parts of those areas. And it just became really obvious to me that we were very, very different. So I learnt to code switch at a
So
very
code switch.
you mold yourself to fit into different environments. So
Yeah.
if I'm going into an environment with a really corporate person, client, whatever,
Yeah.
I would put on my corporate head.
Yeah.
I think people of color have to code switch a lot more than people not of color.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way, our culture is louder. It's, not always, but, it's just different things. You have to kind of be quite malleable, and in that you're code switching, but we just didn't know it was code switching. Now it's now got a term of its own, which is just like placing yourself in different environments, really, and fitting. That's not being fake. It's simply a code switch. You just are a slightly different version of yourself for different environments. So I think I
Yeah.
learned how to do that a lot, because back at that point there wasn't a network, there wasn't a community, there wasn't as many kind of networking events or communities that I could join to get that support from other black or people of color in the communications industry, or even the advertising or creative. We all kind of fit into the same area.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that different now? Has that changed?
Yeah, no, that definitely has. There's a lot more platforms that were set up, especially around the Black Lives Matter moment. And I call it a
Yeah.
moment because it was very much a moment, and it felt a little bit now as a person of color, as a trend, as a fad, because there was lots going on around that time. There was lots of platforms, there was lots of places you could go for help and support, and the budgets, obviously, with everything that's happened even this year. What I'm saying is that the whole Black Lives Matter moment now feels like a moment or a trend or a passing fad, because there's not as many opportunities and support platforms as there were, last year, the year before that. I've seen
Yeah.
a immediate, especially this year, impact it's had. But there's no budgets for diversity and inclusion. There's no budgets to get someone in to help businesses ensure that they are being diverse and inclusive in the way that they run as a business as a whole. So it did, to answer your question, there were support spaces, and there still are, there just aren't as many.
Yeah. Yeah. Things have really changed this year.
Yeah.
And on the back of that moment that helped sort of give you the impetus, tell me about launching your business.
Yeah, so I have worked in some of the biggest agencies, PR agencies, and in-house. And the one thing that always struck me was, no matter how senior I became, there was never really an opportunity, and this is where the code switching comes into play. There was
Yeah.
never really an opportunity for me to say, right, I want to start a division that where we can approach brands that are led, run, or owned by people of color, and we help them. So we almost give them a slightly less, because they're unfortunately not going to have as much budget as another beauty brand just launching, or as another fashion brand just launching. So we set up almost like a bursary stroke department that, and I knew that that was never going to land with any of my agencies or any of my bosses at the time. Okay, so I'm talking about before the Black Lives Matter, way before that, because I've been in the business a long time. I also experienced a few situations where I just thought that a person of color in an intern role that I knew, not even that I thought, I knew was stronger than the other people that then ended up being taken on as full-time members of staff. I saw that as the agencies that I worked for not being diverse and inclusive, because
Yeah.
they were stronger candidates, but they weren't given the same opportunities, because they maybe they didn't code switch. Maybe they didn't speak eloquently enough for some of my, past founders and bosses. And I know that was the case in some instances. I once got told by a former founder of an agency who was obviously my boss at the time, that they didn't like the way one of our interns spoke, and she had too much of a London accent or a street accent or something like that, which really wouldn't really happen now, because someone like me, 10 years older, I would stand up for myself and for that person a lot more now. Back in the day, part of existing in this industry and keeping my career going meant that I just ignored quite a few things, and I do regret that. And I will always, where possible, almost like apologize to the people that I feel that I let down.
Yeah.
When I was in quite a high position, but I wasn't in a high position with autonomy when it came to it,
I feel the same way, even seeing people being bullied in the workplace, and I didn't necessarily realise that what it was at the time when I was younger, and looking back, or even if it happened to me, but you don't necessarily realise because you're so young.
Yourself,
Yeah.
You kind of think, oh my God, I would never let someone talk to me like that now. I
Yeah.
would never let someone do that to me now. I would never get blamed for something that my team member did just because I'm her line manager. And all those things happen to me, and they happen to other people. And I regret not standing up now. So the reason why I do these podcasts, and I am very transparent and very, very honest and very black and white about my experiences, is just so I can get it out as well. And, I've spoken to a lot of those people. They know that I'm sorry. They know that I feel like I let myself down as well as them. But that just spurred me to kind of open an agency and take my experiences, especially my really positive ones, to make the best agency I could create, right?
Yeah.
And leave all the things that I absolutely detested about my other agency or my other places of work, and I left them behind, and I learnt from those experiences, and I wanted to ensure that no one that worked for me or anyone that worked for me in my agency wouldn't go through those experiences. Anything negative, out the door. Anything that I didn't think was positive, uplifting, supporting, nurturing or kind does not live in my agency. So I was given the opportunity to start an agency and start something in an industry that I knew. So I wouldn't be starting from scratch, but also to just do it my way and do it in a way that I felt was kind and supportive and uplifting, and also in a way that I could then go and support all of these brands that I feel had been left behind or underrepresented or taken on by a big agency as a fad. Oh, we need a cool streetwear client on the roster.
Yeah.
And then that client would never see the big bosses that were in the initial meeting to get them in the first place. They'd be paying a retainer and not getting the results.
When you take a client on, what are the main things that you're doing for them?
So the main part of our business is PR, public relations, communications, promotion. Whenever anyone asks me what's PR, it's making that brand, that product, that person famous. Yeah. So the way you do that is by gaining public positive, where possible, publicity on that product, that person. So whether that's in the media or via positive content creation with influencers, which is becoming a big part of our role, which is, sending influencers gifting from that brand, but it's not a paid relationship, and also managing paid relationships. They're used to receiving a lot of gifting across the board, from high-end luxury to fast fashion. We don't work with fast fashion brands, but they're used to that. So the first and foremost, it's to get as much publicity as possible on
Yeah.
that client's, lead, service or product, right? So rather than saying, this is what we're going to do, all singing and dancing, fancy presentation, we actually sit down and talk with our clients quite a lot just to really get behind their business. I would say as a PR agency, we lead with business first, like I said, results first. And we try to work out how we're going to achieve those results, not the big shiny campaign of what you can do and what you can spend your money on to achieve these results. Do you just need to be out there? Do you need more ambassadors? Do you need more endorsement from influencers, content creators? Do you need celebrities, talent to wear your pieces? Do you need endorsement from the industry? So do you need to be taken more seriously? So that is what we do in a nutshell, but every day is different, every month's different, even with the same client. We get asked that a lot when we're interviewing people. They're like, what's a normal day like at Future Brand Thinking? And the only answer to that is different. Every day is
Right. You can just tell you're so passionate and about it. Sounds like you really love it, and that's I think that's really important. And given, as we said at the beginning, we have our one precious life and we have our one precious working life that you love every day. What does a great day look like?
I mean, for me personally, a great day is when I have a bit of time in the morning to just pause and just reflect and just think about what I want the day to look like, right? In my ideal life, I would do yoga, even if it's like 20 minutes. I would have a little home yoga session in the garden or in the living room whilst the kids are eating breakfast. You know, my kids would behave really well and get ready for school really
Yeah.
quickly, and with no issues, no arguing, no answering back. Brilliant, brilliant. Everyone gets out of the door, and then I start my day by 9 a.m. That is like my perfect start to the day. That's how some days go. We've been working from home for the last 4 months. We're moving into a new office next week. So that's been a bit challenging. But a normal day would be for me from when I drop the kids off, or if my husband drops the kids off, from about 9 o'clock, I start mapping out the day. I start looking at emails. I start checking socials. Like, I love and hate social media, but part of my job is I find out so much from social media, from just logging in in the evening and in the morning onto our social media page, because the algorithm will bring up other brands, like other agencies like ours, so we can see what the competition's doing. But also it will bring out brands that we either look after or brands that are similar to ours that we look at quite often. So in my first 10 minutes, I've seen like loads of interesting things, and I've worked out that there was an event yesterday for this launch, so I know that our competitors have just launched something, or a brand that we used to work with has, had a collaboration with someone. And then it's also really important to see how our brands are performing online. So I do at least half an hour just checking through social media and LinkedIn, and just kind of just getting a feel for what today is going to bring. That when I say every day is different, some of our day is aligned to what's been going on social. If a trend's really going crazy and we have that piece or that trend within our collections or within our brand, then we will make sure that we get that up and out to press quickly as possible, so we don't miss a trick. Like you said, I really love what I do, so there's not very many days that I sit here going, oh my god, I really hate this. Why did I do this? Never about the work or about the clients or about my team. Like, all of that is really amazing and really easy if it was just about that. But when you're a founder, I have to think about the finances of the business, that what it takes to keep us going, office rent, salaries, and that's even before I start even thinking about paying myself, as it's still, we're still only 4 years old. So we've had our peaks and troughs, we've had our ups and downs. And through all of that, I have to remain the consistent person because I'm the founder. So I have to make sure that everyone gets paid, even if we've lost a client. I have to make sure that we have an office space because we need an office space for client collections. That side of things and the financial side of things are not my favorites, or HR. Very rarely do we have to go deep into HR, but when you're a small business, set up all reviews, I set all objectives, I set up promotions, all of that is all done by me. So I'm pretty much in-house HR as well as running the business, as well as being very instrumental in the day-to-day of our business. Something that I know that I have to step away from in order for the business to grow. But until I have the business exactly where I want it, I won't be able to step away, and I will never completely step away anyway. I'll always be here.
With a startup, I'm really interested to hear about the lessons you've learned, because I know it's tough, and what are the things that you've really come out of this knowing?
I would say one of the biggest learnings was to not undervalue ourselves, not undervalue our commitment to every single piece of work that we do and every client that we work on, but also our expertise and, our return on investment and the way in which we work with our clients so closely, just to not undervalue those reasons why we should command much higher retainers than we've ever put out there. We've always, and that's led by me. I've always been a little bit reluctant, maybe a little bit scared even to, put across the retainer that I really think that we're worth for this particular client, because I'm like, they're going to look at us and they're going to say, you're small, you're this, you're that, but the service they would get from Future Brand Thinking literally blows out of the water any service they would get from a medium or a big agency, because they get me. Or every client gets my time. Every client gets at least a team of 2 or 3, including an account manager, on their account. And we all proactively really work hard on their brand. So every time we put a retainer forward now, I'm starting to kind of think, what would so-and-so charge? What would this agency charge? So we can come into a lot of brands' businesses and turn them around. We can get them really fantastic publicity, and we can be there, an extension to their businesses, be their consultants on tap. They can have my time. So we've got to value that at much higher than we have done for the last 4 years. So that's a key learning, to understand and appreciate our worth and stand by our worth, right? I think another one of the key learnings has been that as a small agency, you can get a little bit obsessed almost with your big, kind of main client. We put a lot of energy into our main client, and kind of more so than was needed. And it just left us very little capacity to bring on other big clients. We won this brand above some really fantastic agencies that I really respect, and we won the account and we started working with the account. So I thought, oh my God, we've got to do so well at this. Everyone's looking at us, to make this a success. And we did, and we have made that a huge success, but to the detriment of the agency. We should have still gone out, and I should have, so I take full responsibility for that. I should have, once we'd settled that client in, I should have gone out there and pitched for more business as big as that. because
Yeah, it's interesting. I see that the world over with your stories. So many people talk, and not in whatever industry you're in, you have a big demanding client, you end up servicing them, and it means that you're not necessarily thinking about the next layer of new business coming through because you're so busy servicing your existing client, and they're great and they're paying and they're doing all those things, and it's
and
a
it's
juggling
busy.
act.
And it's busy. Like if it's busy,
Yeah,
it's kind of hard
yeah,
when you've got a brand that launches into the UK and they're collaborating with amazing other
yeah,
brands, and you're getting all of this traction, and it's brilliant. And it really helped. I will always say this: working with that brand really helped to launch the agency in a big way, like very
yeah,
quickly. We were known,
yeah,
from people knew me, but people now know the agency because we worked with this brand. But we equally gave everything to this brand, to, like I said, to the detriment of focusing on the pipeline. So that key learning is very personal as a founder. I will now never let that happen again. No matter how brilliant, big, demanding that client is, that needs to be much better managed by me. I think the third and final, like I said, there are loads, but the third and final key learning I would say is, financially. As a business, we are talking to various investors now, and with those conversations, I will only work with an investor, an angel investor, that can bring something to the table in the form of financial or maybe more corporate expertise. So the business itself runs really well.
yeah.
I think I'm that kind of person. I'll just make it work. I'll make it happen. And that is me. Whereas if we had an investor that came from maybe a financial background, or they just had a bit more financial acumen than me, because we have an amazing financial consultant, but he's not in the business. He consults for us, right? He does our payroll, he does our invoicing, and he does our returns, and he can give me a bit of advice, but not in the way as like a FD could, like a financial director.
Yeah.
We can't afford, and we're not big enough to have on board right now. So an angel investor that actually can say, right, you need to shape up the business in this way. The financial end of your business is not working how it should
Yeah.
do. And they would be the kind of people that would have stepped in 2 years in and said, you can't just keep working for this brand. What if they go? What if they hand their notice in? They would have been pushing me, especially because they've invested in the agency, to have a strong pipeline that we do now. But they would have pushed me to have that from a year in to our business, definitely by 2 years in, not 4 years.
So it's letting you be good at what you're good at, and plugging the gaps of things. You want someone who's thinking about your brand and your PR and your marketing. You don't want them to be a financial guru, do you? Because it's a different skill set. It's a different
Really is.
strength.
That's definitely not
Yeah,
my strength. And like, I think that is what's missing from my business. So it is a key learning. And as I've now had the business for 4 years, I 100% know now, because of all the things that have happened in the last year. And we're really positive about where the business is going. But yeah, we definitely should have had this conversation. And I wish that I'd had this learning a lot earlier on.
I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And as you said, it's been really just globally the whole world of industry and the economy and all of these things that have been happening, both in terms of the political sphere and the economy, have led to such ups and downs, and it hasn't been smooth sailing. Have you ever thought about giving up? Like, have you ever gone through a period of I could just get a job working for someone and not
I
have to
think
take
there was a
home more money?
moment, not giving up. I don't think I've ever had, just because I just love and I believe and I'm confident that we will make this business really, really run. And I
Yeah.
reckon it's going to be amazing. I do feel like we're going to pivot quite a lot this year, and we're going to work on a lot of interesting things that are not necessarily traditional PR. But I'm open to that, and I'm happy with that. And my current team are really brilliant at pivoting. So I've never really wanted to give up, but I have had moments.
So we talked about a bit about Black Lives Matter having an impact in business, and I'm interested to hear from you about how things have changed recently, and as you know, how it's still important.
So I have these conversations so much, the whole kind of like companies reviewing their diversity and inclusion platform and budget and all of this just seems absolutely absurd to me, because it would never have been introduced in the first place if it wasn't something that you wanted to keep going, right? And if it was something that you believed in, if a brand or a bank or whoever has taken away or closed the diversity and inclusion, that bank, that brand, that business were never sold into the whole real meaning of that in the first place. All of a sudden I was being contacted, will you come onto this group, will you come onto that platform, will you talk about this, will you talk about that? It was a wild time, but I did refrain from doing a lot of stuff and moving onto a lot of platforms and joining a lot of groups, because I almost in the back of my mind just thought, this is not going to last. I hoped it would. This is not going to last. And it didn't, right? When times get hard, everyone has to look at their budgets and has to look at where they can cut things. But diversity and inclusion in the workplace will only make your brand or your service or your business better. Opening the pool to different people from different backgrounds brings a more diverse and inclusive workforce that is going to, by proxy, work better for your business. If you've got a diverse team, different life experiences, different cultures, that can only benefit your business. I just don't see why that would be cut, And when people say diversity and inclusion, all that means is giving people from diverse backgrounds an opportunity. Whether they reach that opportunity and whether they secure that role or secure that bursary or secure that investment is not the thing. The thing is them even knowing about that role, them even being put forward for that role. That's the important thing. So exactly. I think looking at diversity and inclusion as a benefit rather than something you are doing because everyone was doing it or because everyone told you that it was important, that diversity and inclusion is important. But why is it important? Why is it going to help your business? But really, it's going to benefit your business by having a diverse workforce. So we're a diverse and inclusive business. So I couldn't have just black people working for me or just brown people working for me or just Caucasian people working for me. Has to be, when you see Future Brand Thinking, you have to say, oh, right, they are a diverse agency. That's really important to us. I've created my own seat at the table when it comes to panel talks. I hosted a panel talk last year by ourselves. For Future Brand Thinking, we invited amazing, esteemed guests to join the panel, but it included me because I was kind of a bit fed up of never being asked to do these things. Like, how visible am I when I'm one of the first people of colour, black, brown girls, to work my way up the PR, the fashion PR ladder from entry level to now owning my own business and being head of PR, head of fashion at big agencies, and working at some of the biggest agencies. Why aren't I asked to come and speak about my experience more? And that's just something I've had to just deal with, and that can take its toll on your confidence and on your mental health and on your well-being, because you're like, hang on a minute, I've got so much experience. I might not look as glossy because I'm there grafting and I'm there doing the work, because like my parents used to say to me when I was younger, you have to work 10 times harder than your Caucasian counterparts, because that's just the way it is, and it's always going to be like that, Michelle, my dad used to say to me. So don't ever forget that. Don't ever fall into the trap of, oh, I'm just the same. We both got an A in English. Oh, we both got, we're both in this role in this agency. We're both this, we're both that. But no, you will never be the same.
And what keeps you going when things get tough? How do you persevere?
I think it's the knowledge and the confidence that we are doing something really great, and there's a need for us in the industry. And if we work a lot more cleverly as an agency, there's just so much room for growth, and that's what keeps me going. A lot of things keep me going as a side, alongside that. And I would say my team, I believe in my team. I think they're really great. I'm not silly. I do know that one day they will leave. They will hand in their resignation. They will move to another agency or in-house or move to another country or whatever, right? But I believe in my team. My current team, I think, are great.
Oh, that's great.
I've always believed in my teams. I've had some amazing people work with us, from the 2 interns that started the agency with me, and most people that have worked within the agency in the last 4 years have been brilliant, from intern upwards. We're all still really good friends. So my team keep me going. And then I think the last but not least, and probably one of the most important, is the legacy of the agency being passed on to my children. So if I go and work for M&C Saatchi again, as head of PR, I can't leave that to my children. They can't step into my role when I retire. Whereas with the agency, and because we're a communications agency called Future Brand Thinking, I came up with that name for a reason, because I wanted it to mean different things to different people. But foremost, it means an agency that's open to change, an agency that's open to doing things in a forward-facing way. So future brand thinking means that my children, my 2 boys and my niece, who would inherit the business, would be able to launch future brand thinking as anything. It would be the name. They could continue in communications, or by the time they start working, it would be an AI communications agency or something, but run by bots, I don't know. But it would be a very different space, but that's my legacy that I'm leaving to them. So I want to make the best agency I can with the best name in the industry. So especially if they stayed in this industry, they could move it to the business that they want.
I really love that. No one I've spoken to has talked about leaving a legacy for their children, interestingly, and I've talked to quite a few entrepreneurs in this podcast, but I love the fact you're thinking about leaving a future for your children. That's really powerful, and as you say, a very flexible future. It's something that is potentially going to keep with the times, whatever those are. I was also wondering, what brings you the most joy in your job? Is it maybe one moment, and maybe lots of moments? There's something where you go, oh, that was the day I just felt really alive, that it was just an amazing day.
It's when, being the founder and being in the industry for a long time, results are really important. So I still, 24 years down the line, get completely excited. I think more excited than my team when we get a really great feature in a publication. Now it's all digital, and we're digital first, really. Print is not dead at all, I don't believe, but it's more of a leisurely thing to pick up a magazine and read it cover to cover. That's something that someone in my generation would do, but the younger generations would not do that at all. They read online. They might get really beautiful, expensive magazines as more as coffee table books. So our equivalent of a coffee table book to especially a fashion student or someone interested in fashion, or architecture or interiors, they would get a beautiful magazine that costs about 20 quid. That only comes out twice a year for that kind of thing. So their day-to-day consumption of like lifestyle, fashion, beauty would be online. So when we get an amazing online piece on one of our clients, I still get so excited. I'm like, oh my God, well done team. That's amazing. If I get it as well. So sometimes I come on board and I sell in and I pitch to media because I know them or I've got a good relationship. And when they come back and they're like, yes, Michelle, we'll do this piece, we'll do this feature, we'll interview this person. I'm like, yes, love it. I get really, really happy and excited. And I still have all the feels that I did when I was 21 about achieving those results. Yeah. I also love it when what we stand for is being an extension of our clients' business. So when clients do write testimonials for us, or they come back to us having left because they have run out of budget or whatever, when they come back to us, that's an amazing feeling, because that's like, oh my God, we really did resonate with you as a business, and as soon as you had budget you came back. We've had that quite a lot, right? And then on top of that, when clients just tell us or write that, you know, we're doing a really good job and they feel really supported by us, they feel that we're achieving the objectives, they love the results that we're producing, that's also makes you feel really elated, because that also boosts the morale of the team. So that just makes me really happy. And just when people press and just people just say positive things about us that resonate with the core values of the business, you know, kindness.
And imagine that's really exciting, especially that client feedback, because you know that you put so much work into it. And it's interesting because a lot of people dream of working for themselves or creating something meaningful. Do you have an opinion on what separates those who take the leap from those who don't? You know, those who talk about it and those who do it?
I think some people are risk adverse, and I think if you're risk adverse, you're just going to be honestly in a world of pain as an entrepreneur, because you go into it knowing that there's such high risks, right? And no one can see what's going to happen in the future, so you have to take a real leap of faith. So you have to be mentally strong enough to even do that. So that sets you apart from someone that has all the ideas, has all of that, even maybe sometimes has the money and the capital behind them to start something new, which we didn't have. We just went straight into starting a business with no business loan, no investment, no backup, nothing.
Yeah.
I pretty much didn't have anything in the bank either. So it was just a real start from scratch. I couldn't see that future. I just knew that I was strong enough to, you know, kind of take that leap and do it. So I think that sets you apart. Some people are not, you know, au fait stroke, not comfortable with not having a regular income. I think as an entrepreneur, a founder, until you get to the stage where you can pay yourself a salary, a proper salary, so not dividends that you have to wait till the end of the year on, not a share of profit, which you have to wait till the end of the year on.
And you mentioned your emotional well-being. Do you have a support system that helps you navigate your work and your life?
Yeah, I would say my biggest support, like blanket, is my mother. So my mum is brilliant. You know, over the years, she understood like traditional jobs, lawyers, doctors, being Ghanaian, very much those roles. She worked in food catering. She's a qualified chef, but then she went on to the work in the managerial side. But she has made it, and my late dad did as well, made it their business to understand my world and be as supportive and understanding and have a little bit of knowledge on my industry. Part of my support kind of network is someone called Hannah. We're in different industries, but we've always supported each other as working mothers. So there are people like Hannah that I've found really helpful, really supportive, and we're not just friends, we're almost like industry colleagues stroke friends as well. We support each other in both of our career pursuits as well. And there's lots of people that I can name, but they are mainly in my industry as well. So like I said, I'm friends with a lot of other agency founders. I find it really easy to talk to a few of those that are, some people might see us as competitors, but we don't see each other as competitors because our businesses are slightly different.
So it's about you've created, from what you're saying, like a network of peers, and you can support each other.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same industry, you can be slightly competitive, but it's that supportive network that help. That's quite important.
Yeah, because they were friends first, and then
Yeah.
we became founders. So it just it seemed very normal for me to still keep our friendship, but then also be supportive in business as well. And if we did see things that were not quite aligned, I think we'd be honest with each other. But, if we were going for the same client or something like that, I think we'd almost like have a bit of a laugh about it and just be like, hey dude, may the best man win, kind of thing.
Is there something that you're really grateful for in your life?
On a personal level, my health. I had quite a few health scares last year, and it just made me think, oh God, like every time, even when I'm not getting to exercise and I'm not getting to rest and I'm not getting to allocate time to my mental health, which every day I say I'm going to. So that's a step in the right direction. I haven't done it since I was ill last year with pneumonia. I still am saying to myself every day, Michelle, try once this is sorted, but then it's another thing, as a founder. But I always am grateful for my health, because without health, there's no wealth, right? If I'm not healthy and if I can't, operate the business and run my family, there will be no wealth and there will be no comfort, and we won't be comfortable, and we will always be striving, and we will always be, at that level where things don't quite match up for how much work we're putting in. So I definitely am most grateful for my health, my family, and my close friends who have been really supportive.
So just to bring this to a conclusion, it's your 100th birthday, Michelle. You've had this amazing, long and healthy life, and someone is giving a speech about your life. What are the things you'd hope that they might say?
So it's my 100th birthday, which I hope to live to 100, first thing. I want people to just say, she was a fierce mother, a fierce friend, a fierce daughter, a fierce cousin, a fierce relative. And when I say fierce, fiercely protective, fiercely loving, doing everything in her capacity to be the best mother, businesswoman, daughter, wife that she could be. And she had all of those that she loved the most at the center and at the core of her life.
If you could leave behind some wisdom for others, what would it be?
Put your family first. I think if you put your family, and if you're religious, God at the forefront of your of everything you do, at the core of everything you do, everything will work out. I think if you don't value family, friends can come and go, even husbands can come and go, but your family are there to the bitter end. They're there for you, no matter what. I feel like family first, as a personal word of wisdom, helps you to grow. I would say this is really important for me to build with my children, because my dad said it to me: know where you came from to know where you're going. So if you don't understand your heritage and your culture and where you came from, you don't have to be African, you don't have to be Caribbean. You could be Dutch, you could be American, you could be, Scandinavian. Just knowing where you came from, knowing your family history, your family background, what your grandparents were about, what your great grandparents were about, helps to shape you, the way you are as a person, because that help shape your mum and your father and mother, that helps shape their father and mother, and it all leads down to who you are. So if you know where you came from, you will be able to navigate more seamlessly where you're going.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Michelle. You've been great. And
Thank you.
if you'd like to know more, follow us on One Precious Life.